Alright YouTube, so we are back with another FF7 Remake discussion video. One of the hottest topics surrounding this game is whether or not we're going to get to see the other main characters in the first installment. And by the other main characters, of course, I mean Yuffie, Vincent, Cid, and Cait Sith. Now, if we're basing this off the original game, it's already a flat-out no. We don't run into any of these characters until we're outside of Midgar exploring the world. But that doesn't mean that they can't change it to where we run into these characters during the Midgar segment. And I know when it comes to the OG fans of this game, if they were to change up where we meet these characters at and how they join our party, that'd probably upset them a lot. But I'm all for it because it's a remake, and they've already changed a lot of stuff. We see tons of Sephiroth there in the Midgar segment, obviously. The Watchmen of Fate are a brand new element. They've already shown off new characters that didn't exist in the original game. So I'm kind of okay if they want to retcon and kind of change where we meet Vincent, Cid, Yuffie, and Cait Sith. So that's kind of the point of this video. I wanted to discuss how they could possibly implement these characters into the Midgar segment and how they might be a part of the first game. So we're going to start with the easiest one first, Cait Sith. The origins of Cait Sith joining our party are something that I don't think anybody would care if they changed, because you literally just run into him in the gold saucer, he gives you a couple fortune tellings, and then he joins the party, and that's kind of it. It's honestly such a weak character introduction that I'd be perfectly fine with him changing this. Now, if you played the original game, you obviously know that Cait Sith is an anthropomorphic cat that rides a robotic Moogle, and it's controlled by Reeve back in Midgar at the Shinra headquarters. So I think you can probably put two and two together here. You have somebody inside of Midgar that controls Cait Sith that is a part of Shinra. You could just have Cait Sith be in Midgar. Plus we know from the original game that there are multiple copies of Cait Sith. He dies inside the Temple of the Ancients, gets crushed, and then literally like the next scene, another model shows up. So I feel like he'd be the easiest one to implement into the Midgar segment. I don't think anybody would care if they changed his origin story. When it comes to Cid Highwind, he's probably the most important character in this video in terms of the story, because obviously Vincent and Yuffie are optional characters, and once they're added to your party, they don't really affect much. When you first meet Cid, he's working on the rocket ship, and he's been waiting for years at this point for Shinra to do another trip into space, and I think that's really the key to how you could implement him into the story of FF7 Remake. It's not really the most groundbreaking or thought-provoking idea, but maybe he's just in Midgar to talk to Shinra about this, about going into space again. Maybe he got sick of waiting for years in Rocket Town and decided to make a trip himself to Midgar to talk to Shinra about it. And at some point in our travels inside of Midgar, we run into him. I don't know when and where, because obviously I don't know how many sectors we're going to be able to explore. I don't know how big it's going to be. I don't even know what the exact story is going to be. But we can just find him somewhere in Midgar, and the reason he's there is to talk to Shinra. Now obviously this is a big change from the original game, but the way we go about meeting Cid for the first time isn't necessarily important to the overall story. All the stuff that happens in Rocket Town can still happen with Cid already being a part of our party. We arrive in Rocket Town for the first time, see the rocket, learn about Cid's past, his relationship with Shara, the failed rocket launch. Shinra can show up to get the tiny Bronco, and we can still try to take it away from them. They shoot it down, it becomes our first water vehicle. That can all still happen with Cid already being a part of our party. So I think Cid would be another easy one to implement as well. Now when it comes to Vincent and Yuffie, we'll start with Yuffie first. Neither one of them have much of an impact on the overall story, and that's partly because they are optional characters. Now from what I read online, they weren't initially supposed to be optional, but development issues, they ended up having to be optional characters. And honestly, I think that's the biggest thing that's leaning in favor of these two characters being a part of the first game, is that they weren't even technically a part of the first game. They were optional characters. You could miss them. If you don't have knowledge of this game, you would probably miss them. When it comes to answering these questions for Yuffie, there's almost no way you could get this without a walkthrough or looking it up online or something. Like, I'd never got this as a kid. It wasn't until later on, as a teenager, having access to the internet, that I was able to finally get her on my team. As for how they could put her into the first game inside the Midgar segment, her only goal seemingly in the original game is to just get materia, so maybe she travels to Midgar to get materia. Obviously Midgar has a ton of Mako. Mako produces materia. Maybe that's her reason. Or maybe she's there because of the war with Wutai. Now when it comes to the original game, I don't even know when the first time Wutai is mentioned. I don't think it's ever mentioned during any part of Midgar, but as we've seen with the most recent trailer, you actually hear President Shinra mention Wutai.
My dear Sugarbombed, henceforth allies of wicked Wutai, our sworn enemy. Wutai! The hell we are!
So maybe Yuffie comes to Midgar because of the war with Wutai, or maybe she's there for materia, or maybe she's there for both, who knows? Again, not the most in-depth reasons, but I'm just trying to come up with some ideas as to how they can implement these characters into the first game. Let's also not forget that when you can first come across Yuffie, she's in the Junon area in the forest near Junon, which means she's already on the same continent as Midgar. All she'd have to do is go through the Mithril Mines, and she's pretty much already to Midgar, so it'd be pretty easy for her to travel there if she wanted to. Vincent is another one that I think would be pretty easy to put into the first game, simply because, again, he's an optional character, and meeting him for the first time isn't like super impactful. It's a cool little side quest minigame, having to track down the numbers, fight lost number, get the Odin materia, get the key to the basement, and get to talk to him. And you still got to answer questions correctly, or he won't become a part of your party. All that stuff is iconic in its own ways, of course, but it's not necessary. You can still have a lot of this stuff happen even if he's already a part of our party. Like, you could still come to the Shinra Manor later on whenever you go to Nibelheim. You can still go in there. You can maybe get cutscenes of Vincent talking about his past, open up the safe, fight Lost Number, get the Odin materia, get the key to the basement. Maybe you can still unlock that room and there's treasure in there, or he gives you some more cutscenes, some more dialogue about his past. Similar to Cid, like we talked about previously, a lot of the stuff that happens in the Shinra Manor could still happen even if Vincent is already a part of our team. As for how and why he'd be in Midgar during the Midgar segment, that's pretty easy. He has a history with Shinra. He's a former member of the Turks. He had a relationship with Lucretia, who is the birth mother of Sephiroth. So honestly, he could be in Midgar for a lot of reasons. He could be there for some Shinra stuff, some Turk stuff. He could be trying to find Sephiroth. He could be trying to track down Lucretia. Like, there's a lot of reasons why Vincent would go to Midgar. And honestly, now that I've talked about all 4 characters, it seems oddly easy to put them into the first game if they wanted to. And to be honest, I'd be completely fine if they wanted to put all the characters into this first game, because they got to fill the story out somehow, because we're going to have hopefully the entirety of Midgar to explore, which means 8 sectors above and below the plate, 16 different sectors. There's so much of Midgar we've never seen before, so they got to have stories and stuff going on in each and every sector, and the easiest way to do that would be to run into the other characters that we already know. So I've already said my piece. I passed off to you guys in the comment section. We're not really here to discuss whether or not they're going to be in the game, because the odds are kind of low that they will be if they're sticking to what the original game did. What we're here to talk about, however, is if they are going to be in the game, how could they implement them into the story? So if you have any other ideas that I did not mention, or if you agree or disagree with my thoughts, let me know in the comment section below. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new and want to stay up to date with more Final Fantasy VII Remake content. Turn on my notifications. Follow me on Twitter at @TheDashingDavid. And my Discord. Links to our social networks are in the description and in the outro. Later, guys.
Give me forever for a while, give me forever for a while. Quit acting like a baby, or at least let's like